Aneesha, tell us what you really see around you. The petitioners have arrived already, and what to expect really in the next few moments or so, next few minutes.
Well, Sneha, let me just show you what is happening in the Supreme Court lawn right now. I'm going to ask my camera person to just pan around and show you. Family and friends of the petitioners are here, parents are here, people from the Humsafar Trust and other NGOs who work with the LGBT people are here, and of course the national and international media is also here. Petitioners, of course, have gone inside the courtroom. We are waiting for the judges to arrive any minute now. The judges should arrive in the Supreme Court. The 5 judges bench will be pronouncing its verdict on this very, very crucial matter. Senior Advocate Saurav Kirpal, Menaka Goswami, Anurundhati Karju, Mukul Rohatgi, and several others who had represented the LGBTQ person, the petitioners, have also arrived in the Supreme Court, as has the Solicitor General of India, the additional Solicitor Generals who were representing the government stand. Senior Advocate Kapil Sibal, who was appearing for the Jamaat-e-Islami, has also reached the courtroom. Senior Advocate Adish Agarwala, who was appearing for one of the Hindu NGOs, has also reached the Supreme Court. So everyone who is connected to this court is here in the Supreme Court today. And of course, since this is being live streamed on YouTube as well, people are watching on YouTube. People have connected to the Supreme Court's website as well. Petitioners, NGOs, regular people who may be in support or opposing this matter, everyone is very closely watching this particular verdict today, because on one hand it is the question of the rights, dignity and recognition of people. On the other hand, it is a question of how far does religion and society recognize a relationship. This is going to be a very, very crucial verdict today for the court, for the LGBT community and for society in India in general, as to how do we recognize relationships, what kind of dignity can we afford to our people in this country who may not be part of what we know as the majority social structure. So this is going to be very, very crucial to see also with regard to a constitutional and legal perspective of how exactly is the court going to balance the fundamental rights of a particular community, how the court is going to balance the text and letter of the law, how will the court bring in its own, how will the court define its own power versus the power of the parliament and legislature to create laws. And all of that will be decided very shortly. We're just waiting for the judges to arrive very, very shortly. We are connected, of course. My colleagues Kanu Sharda and Srishti Ojha are inside the courtroom. We will be bringing you minute by minute updates as soon as the Supreme Court judges arrive in the court.
Undoubtedly, Aneesha, be with us. I'm just going to once again, in fact, bring in Nalini, who continues to be with us from the studios here. Nalini, I just want to get a sense from you on how this really is going to have a bearing on several other things that many of these, members of the LGBTQI plus community have been talking about. Simple things that you and I and many others take for granted. For example, your pension rights, the right to buy a property as a couple, your insurance right, importantly, your right to adopt a child, which is so crucial for many people. They would want to do that. And these are questions that eventually the government has to answer, isn't it? Technically, the ball is going to be in the government's court if at all the verdict is in favor of the LGBTQI community today.
Well, absolutely, Sneha. And in fact, that's the argument that the petitioners have constantly made. That yes, it is about equality, it's about equal representation, it's about dignity, it's about the right to life, the right to marry of all of these people of the LGBTQ community. But it's also, at the end of the day, about some really practical solutions to a lot of problems that couples who have been in a long-term relationship are not able to resolve only because there is no legal recognition for their relationship. So maybe something similar on the lines of what earlier was done with regard to live-in relationships, where there were a lot of rights that were accorded to people in live-in relationships. There can be steps that can be taken to also recognize people who are in same-sex relationships. But keeping that in mind, we are expecting a very progressive judgment coming in from the Supreme Court, because this is coming on the heels of not just the Section 377 verdict from 2018, but remember also the right to privacy judgment that was no less than a 9-judge bench judgment, in which the judges have categorically stated that what happens in the bedroom of two consenting adults is completely their decision and their choice, and nobody outside should be able to interfere in it. But now we are going one step further, demanding certain rights for these same couples after the decriminalization has happened. At the same time, some very interesting aspects that are coming through, usually through the Supreme Court website and the cause list that comes out, we get to know how many judgments are likely to be pronounced in a verdict as big as this. But there has been no clue from the Supreme Court in how many judgments we're expecting today. It's a 5-judge bench. We don't know whether it's going to be a unanimous judgment, whether it's going to be a split in the bench, who's going to be dissenting, who's going to be in the majority. So lots to look forward to. We are running a few minutes late. The bench is not yet assembled. So anxiety, I'm sure, is rising in not just for the petitioners, but also the multiple lawyers that are present in the court. But no speculation, and we'll have to wait and watch exactly what happens in a few minutes.
Undoubtedly. Now, listening to what a senior lawyer, Adeesh Agarwal, in fact, said on this entire issue.
As President of Supreme Court Bar Association, I feel granting this permission will be very bad. This will be not in accordance with our system prevalent in India. हिंदुस्तान का एक अलग मेंटेलिटी है, यहाँ के अलग कायदे कानून हैं, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट को ये तो कानून बनाना इस तरीके का बहुत गलत होगा, क्योंकि कानून बनाने का काम भारत की जो इलेक्टेड पार्लियामेंट है उसका है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट को एग्जीक्यूटिव और लेजिस्लेचर के काम में इंटरफेरेंस नहीं करना चाहिए, ये मैं मानता हूँ।
The far-reaching consequences of this case, and that's the reason why the Chief Justice of India placed it before a 5-judge bench. Aneesha, talk to us a little about what has been said in the past as far as the arguments go. What did the Chief Justice of India say when this matter was being heard previously?
Well, Sneha, there have been very, very extensive and nuanced arguments over the 10 days that this matter was heard before the 5-judge constitution bench. Of course, we saw the petitioners argue about their rights, about the dignity, about the, as my colleague Nalini also pointed out, the very basic points of day-to-day life that a couple has to deal with. Apart from that, the centre, of course, as well as several groups related to various religions, they have objected, saying that this is something that is outside of our culture, of our religion, that the religious laws, that is personal laws in India which govern actual marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, etc., those won't allow LGBT relationships to be recognized as marriage. Government had tried to take a stance regarding the requirement of a larger debate on this particular issue. The government in its submissions had clearly said that this is something that requires a larger debate. This is something that requires the parliament and the state legislatures to hold a consultation. They in fact suggested that a committee could be created, including senior officials, which could consider the number of laws that have to be modified. Because remember, according to the government of India and according to the petitioners themselves, to give recognition legally as a marriage to a same-sex couple would require amendments in about 28 different legislations and about 158 different provisions within those legislations, because a lot of legislations in our country are gender-based. A lot of legislations in our country specifically mention a man and a woman whose relationship is recognized. So a lot of this has to be considered by the Supreme Court when it is in its particular judgment. Of course, the Chief Justice and his brother judges, while hearing the petition, had raised several questions of dignity. They had said that can gender be the only reason for this kind of, can you have a very gendered interpretation of relationships? Can you have a biologically determined gender? Can that determine the your legal rights? There was also a long debate regarding adoption rights in particular, because that will affect not just the right of the couple themselves, but also various rights regarding the child, various concerns regarding the upbringing of the child, the social structure that is recognized as family in India. So a lot of nuances, a lot of debate that has gone into this particular hearing in the 10 days that this hearing was conducted in the Supreme Court. And today, as you can see behind me, there are a lot of LGBT persons, there are activists, there are petitioners, there are families of petitioners who are here in the Supreme Court waiting very, very anxiously for this verdict. At the same time, the question is also, how is the Supreme Court going to balance all of these concerns? The constitutional question of equality, dignity and choice, which is the plank on which the petitioners have put their petitions, versus the legal issue of the Supreme Court's own extent of power. How far can the Supreme Court change or interpret the letter of the law when a law itself names a man and a woman? At the same time, the court also has to see the concerns raised by the government with regard to the powers of the Supreme Court, what the Parliament is going to do. Can the government then be asked, can the Supreme Court then ask the Parliament or the government to take a decision? All of these things have to be considered. All of these are open questions, and you can see here some of the supporters, some of the LGBT activists are waiting very, very anxiously for this verdict. We are running a little bit late. It's 11:45 now. The bench is yet to assemble, and we are waiting for the judges to come to the court to pronounce this verdict. And as Nalini just pointed out, we at the moment do not know how many opinions will be there, whether it's a unanimous verdict, whether it is a split verdict. What exactly is going to happen is something that is open for the Supreme Court to given its judgment. At the moment, we are still waiting for the verdict, but you can see here anxiety on the faces of the petitioners and their supporters who are here. We also spoke to some of the petitioners before they went in, and across the board what they're saying is that this is a very, very anxious moment for them. This is a very, very important moment for them. They, in fact, one of them said that I feel like I'm just waiting for my 12th board results to come because I'm that anxious.
That's the sentiment. That's the anxiety and that's the anticipation.